These are your adventures as you explore, seeking out new life and civilizations, expanding your borders and exploiting the resources you find, befriending allies, or exterminating the foes that get in your way.
Contact detected entering sector. Configuration unknown. Assessing. Initiating countermeasures.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Star Trek New Worlds. My name is Tony. Thank you for joining us here on today's live episode. Saturday, 11 o'clock. You're here right now. Thank you. And if it's your first time and you're wondering, Tony, what in the world is Star Trek New Worlds? It is a turn-based Star Trek-themed strategy game that we play here online with you, inspired by the rules of Federation Empire as published by the Amarillo Design Bureau. The maps that you will see are populated by the magic of Vassal. And the content that we are going through is generated by the players that are currently running through our chat, and many of you who have either played with us before or are looking to play with us in the future. So that's who we are, that's what we do, and that's what's going on here. In today's episode, what are we going to be talking about? Well, I even wrote it down. We're going to be talking about them dirty Tholians. Who are they? What threat do they represent? And how to deal with them? Are you going to be hostile? Boom, boom, boom? Or are you going to be something else? As well, the Romulans, another faction that has presented itself in the Splintered Will campaign. Are they Tholians Part 2? And how are players interacting with them? We're also going to talk about the role of intelligence in the sense that that is the only way to get off our little mini-maps. And to put that in a nugget, knowledge is power. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, coffee has been fired. I haven't even gotten to the point where we're talking about coffee just yet. And of course, we're going to do a player recap. So since a coffee was just fired, let me recap real quick what coffee is all about. So as you saw and heard there, a mysterious Romulan coffee was fired. And that is, you can do that either by the QR code in between me and the chat or that link down there, coffee.com/New Worlds. You head over there and you can send us a one-shot coffee donation, or you can join us at one of the higher tiers, including the coffee and Discord, where you can join us on our Discord channel after this is over and partake in the witty banter that goes back and forth on this game. Multiple campaigns that we're playing, 3 of them concurrently right now. Splintered Will, the one we're talking about today, is one of them. So let's just do a quick refresh of the palette with the elixir of life, otherwise known as coffee. Thank you, mysterious Romulan. And before I polish off and go off to the rest of what we're talking about today, real quick, just to round out the screen, you can see there Paul Boyer is our most recent subscriber. If you want to bump Paul's name off that list, then hit the subscribe button. And of course, while you're at it, don't be shy, hit the alerts, get notified, and of course, thumbs up. And as you are donating coffee over the course of this live stream, you will see that green bar progress across the bottom of the board. Our goal today is not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 magic quattro, like an Audi, quattro donations today. So we're already a quarter of the way there. Ba-boom! All right, let's talk about the mysterious, delicious, and exciting Tholians. That was the thumbnail. Let's talk about the dirty rascals known as the Tholians. So when we started Splintered Will, we had... and for those of you who have never played this game with us, of course, it is a turn-based strategy game that we play. It is a game that we are armchair admirals working our way through conquering the galaxy, but there's also a role-playing element to it. In order to add some color, some flavor, and of course excitement as we interact with each other on the map, we incorporate a role-playing component to it. And one of those things, of course, is the game master will introduce story elements or narrative elements that will color and make the world a little bit more exciting to participate in. So in Splintered Will, the Tholians are one of those elements. And when we started the campaign, there was a little blurb that the game master gave us, and I will read it to you now. The Tholian Will maintained tight domination over the galaxy for as long as records have been passed down. Avoiding the piercing gaze of the will, civilizations of lesser races rose and fell over the centuries. None could stand against Tholia. Until now. Thanks to the Seltorian Tribunal, this grip has been broken across countless sectors. The universal oppression of the maturing organic races is fractured or splintered. This is not the Seltorian story, however. This is your story. Caught farthest from the central will, your sector hasn't experienced the typical Tholian pruning in decades. The specter of Tholian influence has all but disappeared. In fact, your scientists are receiving stray signals from races other than your crystalline nemesis. Your engineers have pushed space travel designs well past previous efforts, which were... Boom! Another coffee fired. Let me finish the story, and I will celebrate that coffee in a moment. Your engineers have pushed space travel designs well past previous efforts, which were still more than hopeful, high-risk colonization ships. Various designs emphasizing exploration, infrastructure, and logistics required for a budding space empire are coming available. Industry is scaling to meet your demands, opening high-tech factories to feed your rapid expansion. Researchers are organizing and specializing under your guidance to provide innovations in exploration and defense. As if on cue to your rising demand for resources, two of your close colonies have reestablished contact. Your people have truly entered a golden age. In the back of your mind, Tholians are relentless. It's only a matter of time before they regroup and reassert their will. With no sign of the Seltorian cavalry, another coffee, and with no sign of the Seltorian cavalry in sight, it falls to you, my player, to defend your fledgling galactic empire. Now is the time to rise and challenge this Splintered Will. So our GM produced that little bit of narrative goodness, and boom! An enigmatic Mysterions have fired a coffee and a subscription from Lost Muskrat. Boom! All right. So not just a one-shot deal, but Lost Muskrat has gotten on the monthly train to be able to send us coffee goodness on a monthly basis. That's the way coffee works, much like Patreon and other sort of community support vehicles like that. That's the way that cookie crumbles. So here's a big cheers to Lost Muskrat and our enigmatic Mysterion. Nothing but sweet caffeinated goodness powering my fusion reactor. And away we go. All right. So with that said, we've talked about the Tholians as who they are. Oh, Jesus! My goodness gracious me. We have reached less than 10 minutes into our broadcast. We are already at our coffee goal. Thank you, everybody. We have, once it populates here, I'll be able to see who was that mysterious. There was the mysterious antagonists have fired a coffee. My goodness gracious. Well, thank you very much to our mysterious antagonists, our enigmatic Mysterions, Lost Muskrat, and of course, our mysterious Romulans as well. So much coffee being fired today. Thank you very much. All right. Tholians, right. So when we talk about this particular campaign, Splintered Will, the Tholians are the big baddie, right? They are the monster in the dark, the boogeyman under your bed. They are the thing that will come out of the fog of war and stomp you. And as we've seen, and we will explore a little bit in today's map, when we explore the Tholian faction, they have the most advanced category of ships in the game. As a recap, in this game we have 4 major tech milestones. W era, which is the earliest era that we play in. Although, to be fair, there is an era just before that called S, and some of the factions start off in S. But for all intents and purposes, there are 4 major tech milestones. The first is the W era. That is the sort of the golden era of space exploration. If you are thinking about television series in the past, you might think of something like Enterprise. Not exactly a perfect an analogy for this, but something like that in the W era. Then we go to the Y era. And the Y era is taking those early steps of space exploration and combat effectiveness and taking it to the next level. And you will find that most of the factions in Splintered Will are at the Y era now. Then we go into the middle era, or M era. And the middle era is much more akin to the very early stages of Star Trek, in the sense of, and this is debatable as to where this line is drawn, but if you look at the original pilot from the original series, not so much Strange New Worlds, but the original sort of launch of the USS Enterprise and its first 5-year mission, again, under the pilot of the original series, that's sort of like the early era or the late M era of technology. And then we go into GW Tech, and GW Tech is really sort of the full-fledged technology level of where the normal tabletop Federation Empire game plays. And that is very much the Star Trek that we all know and love as far as the television series, very much sort of the high-tech stuff that you'll see in the most recent television series, Strange New Worlds, and so on. And there are sort of little perk technologies beyond that as far as ships and things that you can build. I'm not sure if we'll get to that in this game. Maybe we will. But those sort of, shall we say, upper level technologies are maybe the Shatner era movies, Star Trek 1 to 6. That's probably maybe where that exists. It's not a perfect analogy, but it kind of gives you a rough outline as to where these technologies kind of fit in the timeline of, or visual reference when it comes to these different technologies. So all that said, the Tholians are at the top end of this tech. They have the most high-end, potent military force in the game. And we, as players, are on average, half of what they have as far as capabilities and advancement in technology. Now, there's one other faction in this game right now as a non-player faction, and that is the Romulans. Now, who are the Romulans and what are they doing? Depending on who's explored and encountered the Romulans so far, there will be a slightly different experience depending on those players and what they're experiencing. But in a nutshell, the Romulans are much like the player factions, another faction that survived this splintering of the will of the Tholian Empire, and they are perhaps a little more better equipped than many of the player factions. They have information or intelligence about Tholians and where they are. And as we evolve in the game and we interact with them, we can gather much of this information. And whether it's through conquering them, i.e. devastating or destroying their bases, gathering remnants of intelligence or information, conquering their planets. We will gain information from them to be able to understand where Tholian bases are, what the greater map looks like, and so on. And we will expand our ability to be able to sort of get information across the map. Or you could be like many players are doing, which is be friendly with them, engage with them, and form sort of rough alliances with this Romulan faction, improved diplomatic relations, and from a role-playing perspective, exchange information, telemetry, navigational data, and sort of, classic sci-fi stuff about where these Tholians are and what the greater map looks like. There is sort of in-game stuff or in-game story elements that talk about how the Romulans have been able to sort of hide from the Tholians up to this point, how they've been sort of more successful than the player factions until just recently. But long story short, the Romulans are a gatekeeper. They have a source of information that we all need. And so that rolls into our third point for today, which is getting beyond the mini-map. In other games that we've played, in other campaigns, we've established the growing of the map, so to speak, or the connecting of empires through what's called supply. Now, if you don't know what supply is and how that works in this game, not to worry. I have a tutorial in the tutorial playlist on this channel that talks about supply. However, in the short strokes of it, there is a range that you can support your ships, a logistical wagon train in the stars, you might say. And so this logistical train extends only so far. And depending on your level of technology, you've got a certain range to that. You have fixed supply points or places where those wagon trains start from. And those are things like planets and bases. And that's where you kind of start your outreach into the greater galaxy. When one player had within supply range another player's starting point, or that base, or that planet, the supply node, when they were within range of each other and they saw each other or knew the other one was there, then those empires connected by like commerce and trade, merchants and so on would travel between these supply nodes, exchanging maps and information and intelligence about the other empire, and it would disseminate through your greater population, and the map would open up. So two neighbors with bases or planets that are close to each other that have connection through their supply range, whether it's 3, 4, or 6, once they're within that range and they're connected to each other, the maps would open up, and that would progressively over time open up the entire map to each player. And you'd start off with like little pockets of a couple guys over here and a couple guys over there, and then eventually the whole thing would open up. In this game, it seems like it's going to be totally different. So in this game, based on this GM's narrative and story, I'm sure that supply mechanic is still going to work, but because our map is bigger, our factions are more spread out, and there is less likelihood or possibility of those factions bumping into each other anytime soon. What ends up happening is that we're all on these individual little maplets, like you've seen in previous live streams, and you'll see here in a moment. In order to get beyond that little maplet, you need to be able to suss out and gather intelligence or information. You can do that in a number of different ways. You can do that by, as I mentioned, befriending and exchanging information with the Romulans. That's one way you could do it. You could reach out and exchange information through military might, i.e. conquering the Romulans and getting information that way. There's also other role-playing elements that the GM is sort of keeping in his magical top hat that you can use to be able to suss out information. Perhaps, as some players have, they interact with the Tholians already, attacking, destroying, and eliminating Tholian forces, and potentially gathering intelligence that way as well. Which way is the fastest? Which way is the most effective? Which way will allow you to grow at the greatest rate? Don't exactly know as of yet. This is the first time this campaign or a campaign has been run in this way, so it's new, and we're kind of exploring it and figuring it out as we go. very interesting, very exciting, and I'm very interested to see how this is going to go. With that said, let's jump into one of our first factions, which has encountered the ladies and gentlemen, is that a new subscriber? Did I see? We have a subscription from William. William, cheers, big ears. Cheers, William, the conqueror, you might say. For your coffee donation, we are 125% past our goal. Keep it coming. Don't slow that down. After all, coffee is the elixir of life, and I want to keep on going. All right, let's roll on into the Lyrans. All right, here we are. So this is turn 41. As we've talked about in this game, for a number of reasons, this game or this campaign has progressed much faster than other campaigns that we're playing at similar turn points or accumulation of turns at this point in the campaign. So we're turn 41. And what are we looking at here? Well, first of all, if I zoom out a little bit, you will see that the maplet, which is what this is right here, is getting quite big. In the sense of the footprint of the player is getting quite big. And so, for example, I can slide over to this map, and it makes it a little bit easier to see. So if I zoom in a little bit, you can see here that we've got the footprint of the Romulan Empire, and you've got these red hexes here with the TH on it. So what is that? That is a different component or element to this particular campaign, and these are called control zones or areas of control. And there's a little tab up here, and I can toggle it on and off. And all it does, and we're working out the mechanic of how this works out in the game, but essentially what this represents is territory that is controlled by the Tholians and where the Tholians are exerting influence. So if you cross into that territory, you're going to war. It's not quite the same as a neutral zone, but if you go into that territory and dispute it, then an attack, for example, then you're going to be going to war status. And as a result, you will see here that in this, if I take away the control zone, you can see it a little bit more clearly. You've got a Tholian resource, another Tholian resource, and a Tholian base right here. Now, on this base, we've got a combination of, and I'll admit, we've never really gotten too far in previous games when it get into GW. So, and I have not dived deep into the Tholians. So I can tell you that we have 3 PCs, patrol craft. We have 2 BWs, and I don't know what that is. I don't know what to call that. Our Starfleet battle friends will probably know. But I'm going to guess it's something like a battle wing, because one of the things you can see here on the counter, and of course you might not be able to see it, is there is the image of the ship, but then there is the number in the bottom corner, which is the attack and defense factor, and then there's a second number just above it, which is a 4. And to help you understand what that means, and let's throw this in here right now, in the very beginning of the rules for Federation Empire, and again, the rule set for this is thick, and if you want to play this game, dive into it, because there is so much to know, and we're always finding little things every once in a while. You will see here on the top, there is the class of the ship. So in the case of this Tholian ship, it's a BW. I don't know what the BW stands for. There is the number up here, which is the number of fighters that ship has. There is the sort of special icon, which in this case, on this particular counter, is a scout and special sensors. You can see here just beside my head to that side, you can see that if it was a diamond, that it's a single ship qualified to be a scout. It has scout sensors. If it's a square, it's a ship qualified to be a carrier escort. And there's a bunch of rules around that. And then there's other icons here, whether it's a plus for a mauler. The triangle indicates a 0.5 or half a point, so you could have a 3.5 attack factor, by example, or something like that. You've got a circle, which indicates It's a special thing for the ISC, so it's a capability for the ISC specifically. And there's a bunch of other things here. So long story short, you've got these numbers and designations on the counter that tell you what's going on. So let's go back to our Tholians here, and you can see that on that group, we've got 2 BWs. We'll call them battle wings for now. And we've got 4 fighter factors and 8 attack and defense factors. And then, of course, there is a cruiser, CA cruiser, with an 8 attack, 8 defense ship. We also have another patrol craft here, and then we have this big stack of ships here, which is pretty interesting. It would seem that there is a CWV, which is underneath my head here. I will move it to the other side so you can see it a little bit better. So this ship on the very end of that list there, and it might be hard for you to see, it's a CWV. Can I make it any bigger for you? Let's see here. Probably doesn't change the size for you. The CWV right here, which is on the top of the stack, is a 6 fighter factor, 7 attack, 7 defense ship. And it has a number of these escort ships with the little square on it, which means they're escorting the carrier. And carriers need escorts, and again, there's a rule about that. You've got CWs, which are war cruisers. And they're a 7 attack, 7 defense ship. Cruisers. A D, which I'm going to assume is a dreadnought, which it looks like 3 Tholian ships in a triangle there. And it's a 10 attack, 10 defense ship. And then you've got 2 scouts there as well. So all that to say, there's a huge stack of ships on this planet, Rockfall. And that planet is most definitely going to be a source of intelligence for our friends, the Lyrans. So we've got quite a little thing going on here. And of course, when we pull up the zone of control here, it's very interesting to note you've got a pocket in the southeast and also the northeast. So what does that mean? Is there like a weird horseshoe shape that's going on here, or are there literally pockets of Tholian control in different parts of the map? Who knows? It'll be really interesting to find out. All right, so we've got Tholian up top, Tholian down below, and that's what's going on here. My daughter is joining me during our live stream. Thank you, sweetie. I'm not doing that right now because I'm in the middle of a live stream. Okay. Thank you, sweetie. Okay, but you got to turn the volume down, sweetie. Yep. Okay. Well, and can you close the door, my love? Thank you. All right, so the joys of family life. All the way, sweetie. Thank you. Okay, so we've got the Tholians, and we've got the Lyrans. Okay, so let's take a quick look at EP. How much money are the Lyrans making these days? We can see that the Lyrans are at 100. So it's supposed to be divided by 10. So that is essentially 110.8. I guess 110.8. So they have 110 EP coming in. That's crazy. Just for context, in every other game that we've ever played, the closest I think anyone's ever gotten to over 100 was like maybe 90. But I don't recall anyone getting over like a C note for income. That is crazy. So okay, so that's 100. That's pretty impressive. Okay, let's look at their fleet cap to see how big that fleet cap is. What do we got here? We've got the Lyrans at 75 total ships, 155 attack factor, 318 total fleet cap. So that's wow, that's pretty impressive. Looks like they've got a couple of fleets here. You can see Apex fleet, 1 ship equivalent in there. Foremost fleet has 14 ships. A bunch of these auxiliary fleets have a number of, and exploration fleets have a number of ships in them, of course. Hunter fleet, look at that. Pelt Hunter fleet has 9 ships in it. What else we got here? Off board. Oh, looks like you've mothballed a couple things there for sure. All right. The Lyrans are looking quite potent as a faction. And rightly so, they got to go deal with the Tholians. The question is, are they at war status? I'm going to guess that they are, but who knows? We'll see. I mean, have they encountered, have they tussled with the Tholians? Based on the ship distribution, I would think that they have, but I'm not 100% sure. Also interesting to note here in the bottom, you've got a purple Romulan vulture, which is the non-player faction Romulan, and another Romulan ship, I'm assuming from a minor faction. So there's the greater empire of the Romulans, which are the just like the Tholians are the big baddie. This is sort of like the alternate ally. And then, of course, there are all these minor factions that we can potentially bump into. For example, you come across a small planet, and it's not yours, but it belongs to somebody else, and they populate that with a Romulan counter. So the question is, are those Romulan counters supposed to be purple, or are they, like, what's the deal with those? I'll be very interested to find out what the story is. I'm going to assume that they're all Romulan counters, and for whatever reason in our module we didn't have enough purple counters to count for them, and so they're taking up that place. Interesting. Okay, so we got Fleet Cap, we got EP, and yeah, interesting that they're obviously pushing it with the Tholians here. Looks like they're starting a fight, but they're also continuing to explore hard up into the top corner, and of course over on this side with the Tholian area of control there as well. Interesting to note. All right, I see a lot of chit chat going on. Black Widow carriers. Oh, Black Widow. Okay. That's the BW for these Tholian ships. All right. A little ASMR here for you while we go to the next player on our list, which is that the Carnivon. All right. So the Carnivon have a couple of interesting things going on here, which... That's so interesting. Okay, so let's start off with the Carnivon, as we always do, with the EP and Fleet Cap. So let's start with EP. EP is Carnivon. Where are you? There we are. So they are at 96.3. Geez, that 0.8 component is really... So in a previous live stream, I talked about this going off the 0.5, and it's because when this module was created, this version of this game, there is medium planets. When they get Happy Plus, they don't give you 0.5, they don't give you 1, they give you 0.8. And so the 0.8 is throwing me off in the sense of it's changing the numbers ever so slightly. So this is 96.3 income for the Carnivon. So 96.3. And let's take a look at their Fleet Cap. Fleet Cap is 22 ships with 52 attack, 140 defense. Fleet Cap 140. Very interesting to see how, I mean, the Lyrans are just so much bigger from a fleet perspective than everybody else. That's pretty nuts. Pretty crazy. Okay, so what do we got here? A couple of interesting things to note. One is this sort of pulsar black hole looking thing over in the corner. And these are geographic features on the map. And as we go through some of these other maps, you'll note that there seems to be a pattern to them. But I wonder if that's a red herring. We'll have to see. But there is some kind of pattern, maybe, to the position and the disposition of these pulsars or black holes, whatever they are. They are also something you have to go around as opposed to go through, which is interesting. And I have been sort of, little birds have tweeted in my ear that around these pulsars will be wormholes. And you can see there's one right here. So this alpha wormhole is a two-way wormhole in the sense of there are three different categories for wormholes. There's a innie, in the sense you can go into it and it'll spit you at the other end. An outie, which is only the exit of a gravity well, one-way wormhole. Or there is the two-way wormhole, a true wormhole, which is which goes back and forth both ways. Now, this is the gravity well this is the two-way wormhole, and it'll be very interesting to see what they do, the Carnivon, with regards to navigating this. Their sixth fleet, if we just take a quick look at their sixth fleet, number of fleets, Carnivon Expeditionary Exploration. So their sixth exploration fleet is just a freighter, a large exploration freighter. So when it comes to wormholes, there are levels of technology associated with wormhole tech. It's a thing you need to unlock, and you unlock it by taking an R&D team on a exploration or survey ship or some kind of ship. You go to the wormhole and you survey and or explore it. Once that's done, you unlock wormhole technology, and then you can work your way down the wormhole tech. R&D teams can do specific wormhole tech by parking themselves on the wormhole, either in a ship or in a base, and conducting wormhole research on the wormhole. And so they can do that and give you an extra research point on wormhole tech. You can also do through random either research with another faction or home R&D. You can randomly, by chance, get a wormhole tech as one of the benefits of that research that you do, and then you work your way down wormhole, and you can also apply research points to wormhole tech, and you can work your way down and unlock the ability to send slow ships through, which unlocks supply through a wormhole, be able to transit a wormhole without being crippled, a bunch of other things. But at the very beginning, without any of that stuff unlocked, if you travel a wormhole, the ship that travels through will be crippled, and crippled ships cannot travel through wormholes. So at the very beginning, after you've surveyed it and explored it, and you can go through it, you're going to get crippled on the other side, and it's a one-way shot until you've unlocked that technology. So something to think about. One of the other sort of big things to note here is the discovery of a various Tholian assets. We've got a couple of resources here on the very edge, and at the very top here, you can see we've got a battle station, BATS, which has it's a GW BAT station with 6 fighter factors. Obviously, it's got the diamond there for EW and scout functions, 12 attack, 12 defense, and it's also got planetary or a ground base position there with 6 attack, 6 defense, and 12 fighter factors. So that's interesting. There must be a planet there. It's a little bug that we have with regards to this module. It doesn't show the planet. Like when you hover your cursor over it, you can't see the planet, so you got to kind of move things to get there. So there's a minor planet there, obviously. So that's a supply node and point. That's where the planetary ground base is sitting on. And then, of course, you got the base station and then a number of these 2 patrol craft and a destroyer sitting on top of that station. So interesting to see that, and I'll be curious to see what the Carnivon do in response. In addition, just like we saw with the Lyrans, we've got a Romulan Vulture, a Dreadnought class ship, sitting there with a diplomat on their homeworld. So I'm wondering if they've encountered them. Obviously, they've encountered them, and they're engaging in some kind of back and forth to gather that intelligence that I was talking about. Very interesting to see. All right, let's take a second and jump into the chat and see what's going on with everybody. All right, let's pop out this chat and take a look at how everybody is doing. So after that barrage of coffee, thank you so much, everybody, for your coffee donations. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 coffee donations this time around. Boom, boom, boom. Let me take a quick sip as my throat is drying out ever so slightly. Oh, there's something so sweet about it when it comes out of this glass. Shameless plug. I wanted to take a note and thank those of you who have seen the refreshing crispness of beverages that come out of these themed glasses, and then you've ordered your own. And I've seen quite a few of you ordering them, so thank you very much. I hope that you are enjoying them. And I'd love to see pictures and or feedback or comments, or let me know how you are enjoying the sweet nectar that comes out of these rather enticing looking beverage devices. Mm, mm, mm. Fantastic. Okay, let's talk about it. All right, we've got Jim talking about Black Widow carriers. Okay, Black Widow carriers are the BWs we were talking about for the Tholians. The CMV is the War Cruiser Carrier. That makes sense. Okay. Jim, yep, a Tarantula class Tholian Dreadnought is the big D. Okay. D is the Tholian DN, like either 3 PCs or DDs welded together. Okay. I see Romulans at the bottom of the Lyran map. Yeah, well, the purple counters don't have necessary pieces needed, like R&D, tugs, and diplomats. Okay, so we've got the purple and red counters kind of mixed up there, but all the Romulans are non-player characters. Red, black, 1 Romulan, purple, white, other type. Yeah, so all the Romulan counters that we see, they're just the non-player factions. Looks like a Jindarin. Smitty says, down by the wormhole. No, sorry, just pretty background. Okay, all right. Well, let's pop that back into the chat here. All right. So let's take a look. Mayhem has ordered his Splintered Will glass, but it hasn't arrived yet. Yes, I think I saw shipped on the 24th, and it should be to you shortly. All right, well, let's take a look at the next faction on our list. We had the Lyrans, and now we had the alternate Feds, and they have quite an interesting story to tell. Oh my goodness, look at this area of control that we are seeing here. Ooh, okay, so the alternate Feds here, looks like if I take away the area of control quickly, you can see they have a Vulcan survey cruiser or scout, and so it would seem as though they started off as Vulcans and are working their way through the tech tree. Notice the area of control counter for the Romulans. A little harder to see, but you can see here that the Romulan counter is covering this whole area here that the Feds are kind of moving into. And you'll note the location of these bases, Tholian bases, identified on the map as well as that planet there. So this would be an example, I would say, of the Federation working with or collaborating with the Romulans to be able to get information about where the Tholians are. And why do I say collaborating versus like they're just attacking them? Well, if I take away the area of control real quick, and you can see the purple. So first of all, the Romulans are maintaining control over their resources and assets, i.e. all the purple stuff, right? So they've still got their colony, their resources, and you've got surrounded by all these Federation fleets. Now, majority of these fleets are probably just exploration fleets with a survey ship of some type and an escort and a prime team. For example, let's look at Fed 2 exploration. And we can see here, by example, we'll put them over here. By example, we've got all the WSRs, i.e. survey ships with a prime team, some of them with escorts, not all of them with escorts, but many of them with escorts. We've also got the auxiliary fleets, which I'm going to assume, make a big guess, that the auxiliary fleets are with tugs. Yep, that makes sense. So we have a whole bunch of tugs, some of them with frigates, most of them with frigates, a couple without. And they're following in the back end, probably building a whole bunch of bases and logistical infrastructure to carry on going forward. And so that's what's going on with the Federation. Interesting to note this one ship that's kind of gone off on its own, and I wonder if there is an arrangement, again, a role-playing component to the game, whereby the Romulans are providing supply to the Federation, because if that's the case, look at that major planet there, the Federation is exploring well beyond their supply range. They wouldn't be able to, when your ship is out of supply, it can't use its special abilities and it can't survey successfully. So therefore, it would be unable to survey. So if it's going past its normal supply range, it's got to be supplied by the Romulans in order to get there. So I'm going to guess that the Romulans are providing supply to the Federation, and that's allowing the Federation to explore and expand beyond their current sort of box, shall we say. And you can see this pattern of Tholian bases, which is interesting. Be curious to see how that extends. And of course, this random Tholian resource up here in the corner. Interesting to note that the Feds have not taken it. Oh, and of course, at the very top, look at what we got here. We got another planet, a medium planet in this case, with planetary ground bases, 3 of them, 6 fighter factors, bats, and then a bunch of ships, a carrier with 2 escorts, providing defense on that particular hard point. Interesting. Let's look at the EP and fleet cap for the Fed 2. So the Federation 2 has 97 total income. Fleet cap is 72 ships with 100. Expand this ever so slightly. With 149 attack, 301 defense, and fleet cap. That makes them one of the biggest fleets, most potent fleets, I should say, in the game. Very interesting. All this interaction with the Romulans and the Tholians, and very clearly the Federation, living true to form, are being nice and friendly when it comes to dealing with the Tholians. So very interesting to see that, and neat to see. All right, let's jump into the next faction on our list, which is the Gorn. So this is interesting. So we have the Gorn. A couple of keynotes. Let's start off right off the bat instead of waiting till the end with EP and fleet cap. So the Gorn are at 98.8. Again, this 0.8 thing is driving me nuts. So the 98.8. As we can see, the average income is looking to be in the top end of the 90s, just below 100, even though there are some people that are over, i.e. the Lyrans, over 100. So we've got 98.8 for income. And let's look at fleet cap. The Gorn have 75 total ships with 133 attack, 292 defense, and fleet cap. So that's interesting. They quite a few ships, it would seem. And if we look at the top, we can see that they've bumped into a couple of Tholian resources. 1, 2, 3. However, despite those resources being there, we haven't seen any ships and or bases and or planets. I'm sure they're just on the other side of that fog of war, but nonetheless, things to look for and things to see. We can see the range 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 is the farthest to the east. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 is the furthest to the north. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to the south. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Well, depending on your perspective, somewhere in the double digits there for the west. So they've definitely got these beginnings of pointy bits as far as their exploration. 2 things to note that I find interesting is this long DMZ that they're encountering. What does that DMZ represent? Who's on the other side of the DMZ? And then, of course, they've got a wormhole here. 2-way wormhole. There's the wormhole plus you've got the pulsar, and then they've got a void counter here. Now, the void counter is interesting because it's like, as I understand it, voids, like, you just you cannot travel through or transit through the void. It's like a block. Boom! Ladies and gentlemen, another coffee has been fired. Let's take a big swig of that juicy, wonderful elixir of life. Eugene is saying in the chat, Fed 2 has a diplomat, and diplomats have diplomatic supply. So, Eugene, you're going to have to explain that to me because I've never heard. Oh, jeez Louise, another coffee has been fired. I've never heard of diplomatic supply in the rules ever. Never used it once. So, can you explain to us what diplomatic supply is and quote us the rule number so I can go look it up and I can show everybody else? Unless it's a in-house rule that Robin is sharing, but I've never heard of diplomatic supply ever. So diplomatic services have fired a coffee, boom, 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 and coffee fired over overworked Allstate agent. That's the insurance on those wayward Federation ships flying off into the void. Speaking of the void, yes, Robin, if you're out and about, can you tell us what the void is? Tell us about that counter and what happens with the void. What can you do? What can you not do with the void? And what does it represent? All right, so that's the Gorn, and again, look at this pulsar on the corner here, and I'm thinking that this is my theory, and we'll see what happens as we evolve. I have a feeling that the pulsars are regularly placed, or they are a geographic feature that represents sort of like landmarks, and there are DMZs or other, shall we say, man-made or player-generated landmarks or geographic features like DMZs that connect some of these things like the pulsar and stuff like that. So I'm curious to see what that looks like. And again, if the pulsars are regularly placed around the map, then we can start to, depending on where we are relative to these pulsars, we can start to theorize where we are relative to the map. For example, is there a central hub and we're all around the edge, or are we scattered all over the place and it's all, we're all out to lunch one way or the other. I find it amusing because I'm not the only one who sort of guesses on these things, and our GM laughs at us as we try and figure out what's going on because he says we all have it very different than what the reality is. But nonetheless, it's fun to speculate. All right, let's roll into who is this little guy? Who is this little guy? Let's go to a better map here to be able to look at this little guy. All right, let's slide on over to this one. All right, so this is the hydrants, that little guy. This guy, smallest, and the only reason I can go to this map is because I'm so small. Let's take a look at the EP. So to note, everybody else is in the high 90s when it comes to EP. Let's look at the hydrants. Oh, 79. 79 EP. That is nothing by comparison. So that's very, very interesting. Okay, so oh, ladies and gentlemen, another coffee has been fired. I'm going to run out of coffee here. No, I'm on the live stream, sweetie. All right. Woo, woo, woo. All right, so we got the coffee just fired by, who was it? It was Robin J. firing a coffee our way. All right. Let's see. Oh, Robin has answered the question. The question is, void is empty, non-traversable space that help me create physical obstacles, 1 hex versus 7 hex pulsars. Boom. So that's what that is, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's take a look at, again, the little itty-bitty hydrants. So the hydrants are tiny, 78 EP. And Fleet Cap, let's look at Fleet Cap. They have a total of 21 ships with 39 attack, 138 defense. Interesting to note how different the hydrants are versus the other factions. So the other factions have, nearly 100 ships. The hydrants have 39. The other factions have someone has fired a coffee. Ooh, geez Louise. More coffee beverages. Here we go. All right. The hydrants only have 21 ships versus like 75 and those other numbers, and 39 attack and 138 defense versus some other factions are pushing 300 in their total defense factors. So the hydrants really need to catch up. But where are they spending their money? one thing we didn't sort of check out with the other factions is base building. So you can see here, when it comes to base building, you will see that there is quite a few bases. It's harder to see, I know, with the green on green, but we can see there's a couple bases here along the DMZ, a YDK on this. There's a planet right here, major planet, YDK on top of that. Then we've got a distribution of bases in support, although it seems like we're missing a couple here. I guess I got to follow up with some base building there. We've got YDKs on, there's like 4 planets here. We got the capital system. We've got, underneath this is a minor planet. Then here we've got a major planet. And then under here, we have a colony. So we have, there is a YDK on the capital, a YDK here, YDK here. So we got a trifecta of YDKs, and this will soon become a YDK as well. And then, of course, we've got bases being built in all sorts of directions. So lots of bases being built, at least from the Hydran perspective. Interesting to see if that ties in with everybody else. We've got exploration going off in all directions. You can see the exploration fleets pushing hard into the south, tugs in the area to support it. Exploration going off into the east with tugs in the area to support it. Exploration only one into the north with a tug in the vicinity to support it. And of course, this push to the west. And the push to the west is interesting because what do we have? We found this Romulan resource and a Romulan planet being detected by the YDSR. So the YDSR is moving in this direction to be able to figure out what is going on over here. And of course, as we can see, lots of base building to be able to support exploration in this area. In addition, you'll see home fleet here. So Hydran, where are you? Hello, Hydran. There you are. Hydran home fleet. Hydran home fleet is a combination of a total of 5 YCCs. So for the Hydrans, for example, they have a normal cruiser, or YCA, that is called the Grenadier. It is a 3 attack, 6 defense ship. It's okay, but the YCC variant of that same ship is a 4-6. And the sort of best, the ISC have a slightly better one, but the sort of the standard top tier cruiser of the Y era are 4-6s. There are many ships or many factions that have 3-6s or 3-5s and various other things, but the 4-6 is sort of the standard, at least in my mind, when it comes to cruisers in the Y era. So the Hydrans are building YCCs, and there's 2 advantages to that. One, YCCs have a 9 command factor versus the 8 for the CA. And of course, in this case, it's a 4-6 versus a 3-6, which is just overall better. So we can see that that's going on here. And of course, lots of tugs floating around with now exploration ships. One pivotal thing that the Hydrans did now versus what they did before, which is in the beginning of the game, I was running an experiment where I was only building survey ships, freighters. And the freighters are cheaper to build. They move slower, but my thought process was that it would be a more effective way to explore. And I was building bases because I have this sort of reflexive instinct to build bases to be able to support exploration and expansion. 2 things happened that sort of flipped that strategy on its head. One, all the planets that we're uncovering and discovering are not populated with a resisting force, in the sense of you don't have to conquer them to incorporate them into your empire. So you can just, they seamlessly integrate into your empire and automatically become supply nodes to extend your supply, allowing you to explore further. So that was one thing that I hadn't anticipated based on previous games, so that was interesting to note. And then the second thing was that observing the fact that the other factions were building survey ships, like the survey cruisers and various other things, they were exploring faster and more effectively than my strategy, with which of course I was taking time to build these bases in the early stages of the game, which for me I was spending money on bases where I could have been spending that on exploration ships, and that slowed down my exploration. I would say that I'm starting to catch up now a little bit. However, there's a lead that everybody else has over me, and it's going to be very difficult to catch up in the long term. That being said, nearly 80 EP versus nearly 100 AP. So I'm still about 1/5 or 20% behind everybody else on average. We'll see if I can catch up, if it makes a big difference. Also, with all these other factions going to war, they're going to war economy, which means they get 100% of their income versus 50% when you're at peace. So it'll be very interesting to see who goes to war with Romulans and or Tholians and how that influences their economy and progression in the game. But with this said, on this particular game, see that planet on the edge there? That little planet there? Should I attack it? Should I attack the Romulans and treat them as hostile? Or should I be friendly with the Romulans and be buddy-buddy with them? What do you think? Pop that in the chat. Let me know what you think. All right. Let's slide away from these dirty, pesky Hydrons and into something a little more exciting, which is the Klingon Empire, which I have quite the soft spot for. But because this map is so big, I'm going to have to slide back to the bigger map. All right, just as I'm sliding in here, I'm taking a look at the chat, and I can see Daniel. With all this coffee, Tony is about to pull a Roger Rabbit around the room. Totally. Do we not remember the intro? What was it? Was that the beginning of Roger Rabbit? He's like, I can't remember what he drinks, but then he does this spinning around the kitchen, and then I think he rams into something. I can't remember. But that Roger Rabbit, that movie, who remembers that movie, Roger Rabbit? Great movie. But that whole sequence in the very beginning, that animated short that they're filming is pretty hilarious. Finally, someone awesome. There we are. Mayhem says diplomatic ships do not require supplies and are presumed to be drawing supplies through diplomatic channels. Does anyone have a rule reference for me so I can see that? I appreciate that narrative, but where is it? Diplomatic rule 54.145, drawing supplies through diplomatic channels. This would be something I have yet to see. Whoop. All right, let's do a quick search here. So it is 54.145, 540. There we are, 540. I was going to say, there's nothing below 100. 540.145. Boom. Diplomatic ships do not require supplies. Can we read that? Let me move my head to the other side so we can all read it at the exact same time. Whoop. Diplomatic ships do not require supplies and are presumed to be drawing supplies through diplomatic channels. This does not include replacement fighters or refilling the supply points on a cargo ship, but is limited to allowing the ship to move without restrictions of being out of supply. So those are diplomatic ships. And this is with regards to, there are no specific diplomatic ships other than the Klingon D7N, DWN, and D5N. A race could use an APT, whatever these are, or an large exploration freighter or large freighter to carry a diplomatic team, even one from an inactive fleet. A diplomatic team can only be carried on a ship of the same race. A ship with a diplomatic team on board can use strategic movement nodes of allied or neutral races. Okay. So it would seem a ship with diplomatic team on board is never interned by a neutral race, but might be captured and interned by an enemy race. Note that any race with which we are not at war is neutral for the purposes of... Okay. Interesting. See, like I said, you learn something new every day. I hadn't known that with regards to diplomatic ships. Very interesting. We learned something. We all learned something today. Oh, interesting to note. Okay, let's roll into the Klingon Empire. So before we dive into all the nitty gritty about this ridiculous map that is the Klingons, love the Klingons. Tell me that is a trade route. That is totally a trade route. Oh, yes. Okay. All right, let's look at the EP real quick. Klingon EP 97, bang, good EP. But there's a trade route here in addition, so that'll be interesting as well. Fleet cap. Let's look at fleet cap. Fleet cap is 60. Look at that, over twice the number of ships that the Hydrants have. Excuse me, with 137 attack, 265 defense. Interesting. The minor Romulan faction has almost the same number of ships as the Hydrants. That's laughable. Okay, so let's pull off the control for a second. Let's take a look at what we got up here. So we've got in this Romulan, what do we got here? We've got, home? That's interesting. So is this the Romulan faction's homeworld? Or is it one of many homeworlds that they have? Like, do they have multiple ones? Based on this, I would think it is the homeworld for the Romulans. And that is very interesting. Also interesting to note that the Romulans and the Klingons have a trade route, quite an interesting trade route, going to their homeworld. Very interesting. Exciting. And what's this? This is a minor planet there. Is that a resource? No, that's a developing planet there. And that's a colony there. Okay, so let's just take away all the ships so I can see. And then bases. So we've got colonies and a minor and a developing and a major. But that's their home planet. That's super interesting. Okay, cool. So in addition to this, and again, areas of control, we can see that the Romulans have this area of control here, but then there's the Tholians right beside it. So I'm wondering what the connection or the relationship is between the Romulans and the Tholians in this area. Are they at war with each other? What's going on? Because I can see here there's quite a stack of ships on this homeworld. Understandably, they have a Vulture, which is a Y-Air dreadnought. They have one Kingbird, two Warbirds. So the Kingbird is a command cruiser, Warbirds are cruisers, and the Romulan cruisers are kind of like light cruisers. They're less potent than other factions. They have a number of these Hawks, which are destroyers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 destroyers. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frigates, which are their YSN or snipes, Y-era snipes. And then, of course, we have a D4 with an R&D team on that planet doing, I'm assuming, joint R&D. And then, of course, exploration fleets, Klingon exploration fleets, continuing to push in. And they have their own bases in position. Interesting. They have their own bases providing logistical supply. Note the distance between these bases as I pull that away. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to guess they have 3 supply based on this distribution. Interesting to note with the Klingons, look at the, if we take away the ships real quick, notice the bases or lack of bases. We talked about sort of the Hydran philosophy, which, flawed though it may be, they have a proliferation of bases, right? Well, when we look at the bases here, we have a 1, 2, so, oh, there's a YDK there. Interesting the order in which that's stacked. There we go. Okay. I'm just going to change the order so it's a little bit easier to see those bases. We got anything here? Nope. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, to be fair, when you have a larger footprint and you have the same number of bases, it looks like it's a little bit more sparse. But they definitely have not an insignificant number of bases, and quite spread out in order to be able to facilitate. It looks like exploration. You can see that on the western side of their empire, they've got lots of planets that are facilitating exploration with all these exploration fleets pushing out. And you can see definitely 1, 2, 3, the 3 supply in full effect and stereo sound in that regard. YBS down here, so we're building to the south, and then of course we've got the pulsar here with another wormhole. Very interesting to note this again, the geography of where these pulsars are. I wonder if is there a DMZ that goes along here? If there is, I wonder, like, what does that mean? And are the pulsars like, is there an interior ring of pulsars and an exterior ring of pulsars? Like, how does it work? I'm wanting to figure that out. And then, of course, as we look out to the fringes here, we can see that obviously there's been some exchange between the Romulans and the Klingons, because the Klingons know where all these Tholian bases are. So we've got a battalion of ground base stuff here on this medium planet. You've got bats up in the corner, bats here, bats here. We've got a medium planet there, and obviously a planet here, a minor planet. So we've identified and located all these Tholian outposts, and the only way they could have done that is through intelligence. Again, knowledge is power, getting this information. So here's the question to Robin, our GM. What is the threshold from going from the small mini-map to the big map? What is the degree of intelligence to get to the big map? And how does that structure work? In previous conversations, I had the impression there is a tiered system, like level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever that number is. So what's the spectrum? Is it 1 to 6, 1 to 10, 1 to what? And at what level do you get to join on the big map? And the reason why that would be important for us as players is because if we understand that mechanic, then we can make the job easier for the GM, perhaps, by going after that level of intelligence so that we can get onto the big map. And if there's one big map, then we can look at the whole thing all at once, and it's much easier for the GM to manage, less workload for the GM. Of course, you can do it on the flip side, where you can have players like the Hydrants, who are obviously slow. We're on the small bus over here, and they may not get to that level of intelligence, and they may be lagging everybody else. We can see where everybody else is on the map, but we can't see the Hydrants because the Hydrants are just too slow. Now, that being said, if we can see 9 other players and we're missing one, we can kind of figure out where that other player is. But, that's how that all works. So, anywho, interesting to note about these, what did it say? Robin, strategic operations, 1 to 5. 5 gets you on the big map. Okay, so here's the question. As a player, how do you know what level of intelligence you are? Or is it something that the GM sort of keeps behind the screen, so to speak? You find out pieces of information, but you don't know what level of intelligence you are on that level. Like, for example, you might get feedback from a role-playing perspective on information that you're getting from the Romulans, but you don't know that you just went from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 or 3 to 4. You don't know how close you are to that magic 5 number, by example. I appreciate it, Robin, saying that the Hydrants aren't slow, they're just hiding. That's very generous of you to say. Unless you're Tony, and then you need level 100. Of course. Because again, we're hiding, right? We're hiding. Okay, that's the Klingons. And again, the Klingons are doing, like, I just have such a warm, soft spot for the Klingons. Yeah. All right, let's go into the Kzinti. The Kzinti here, very interesting. Again, look at the position. I know my head's sort of in the way here. Let me slide over to the other side. Woo! Slide over to the other side. And we can see where that pulsar is located. So it's that pulsar, and look at the relationship between it and the DMZ. That's what's getting my attention, right? Like, look at this little pocket. Look at this. You've got one up here, one down there, and there's this connective tissue of the DMZ in between. That's what I'm thinking. Like, what's the deal with these pulsars? I'm wondering, and maybe I'm way off base, but I'm wondering if there is a relationship between the positioning of the pulsars and sort of the cordoned off area where the Romulans are. But that being said, on this map, we can see the Romulans are, like, you can see where a bunch of these planets are, obviously, because they have worked well with the Kzinti, but they're well within this this area. And as we saw on the Klingon map, the Klingons have discovered a homeworld, or the homeworld for the Romulans, but it doesn't necessarily relate or have a direct relationship with this map. So again, it's it's fun to theorize and hypothesize as to what's going on. But I'm really curious when the big map happens. It'll be really interesting to see what that looks like and how it all fits together. Because man, it's exciting. Okay, let's take a quick look at EP here for the Kzinti. The Kzinti are at 69. So in previous live streams, we saw this table. Robin, love that table, by the way. Keep that coming. Where we saw the sort of the ranking, or not ranking, but we saw all the different player factions, and we saw everybody's income, total number of hexes explored, and all this kind of stuff. So great table. Love to see more of it. In that table, we saw that there was one faction that was lagging behind everybody else, and then there was the Hydrants. So the Hydrants are lagging behind everybody else at number 2, but the Kzinti, very obviously, are the ones just below the Hydrants in this context. So whereas the Hydrants are at 78, the Kzinti are at 69. Great number. But we are certainly like those two factions are competitive with one another, riding the bottom of the barrel. That being said, let's take a look at fleet cap. The Kzinti are doing better than the Hydrants on fleet cap with 37 total ships, 77 attack, 170 defense. So the Kzinti are a little bit more potent when it comes to their offensive firepower. And let's take a look at their base infrastructure. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bases plus a YDK here. We've got some planetary ground bases in position. And of course, let's look at the Kzinti capital. And we can see they've got not one, but 2 YDKs there. Very interesting to note. So 2 YDKs populating their capital system. Very interesting. Huh. So one of the interesting perks of this game is in this campaign, we're experimenting with any starbase and or YDK can build a frigate. So instead of building frigate slipways, which cost 10 EP to build, and you can build a total of 3 of them, one of the theories or one of the experiments that's going on is that people are building YDKs instead. Now, YDKs cost 20 to build, obviously, 10 to build a YBS, and then 10 to upgrade it. However, there's 2 things about a YDK that give it sort of more advantage than specifically a slipway. A slipway has no attack and defensive capability. The YDKs do. YDKs also allow you to be able to convert and do upgrades to different ships. They also provide repair capacity, which slipways do not. Slipways can facilitate a major upgrade or major conversion, but the YDKs do that as well. YDKs can build a frigate, and so if you have 2 of them on that capital, then you've got the defense factor that those provide, the repair factor that those provide, and the ability to build frigates. So obviously a mix would be best, probably, but it's very interesting the choice to invest in YDKs versus slipways. And I know for the Hydrants, by example, we're doing that exact same thing, just slightly different. Instead of localizing it on the capital, we've distributed them in sort of the 4 hex diamond shape that is the major planet, the minor planet, the medium planet, and the colony. So just the way that we discovered planets and so on, there's this little diamond shape, and we're building YDKs there. So mutually beneficial, mutually supporting ability to build frigates and various other things in that dynamic. So here we got a very similar thing happening. We have the Cabals, which are the prime teams, being embarked on what looks like, so the YCS is a strike cruiser. Interesting. So the strike cruiser is not in itself a survey ship. I'm just thinking. It's not. Interesting. I'm going to assume the Kzinti don't have a survey ship. Do the Kzinti have a survey ship? They must. They must have a survey ship in the Y era. It doesn't seem like you do have one. Otherwise, you would have. Okay, hold on. Let's take a look at the Kzinti exploration fleets. You do have one. So the YSR. So you have one. You just are putting prime teams on strike cruisers. And again, this is an example of what I was talking about. Oh, sorry, my head is in the way. Let me slide over. Strike cruisers are an example of what I was talking about with the cruisers, for example, the Hydrons. Their strike cruisers are 3/6s, much like the Grenadiers for Hydrons. I'm assuming they have a command cruiser that is a 4/6, but the 4/6 is sort of the top tier, relatively speaking, with the ISC being one above that. But 4/6 is sort of the standard top tier cruiser. So they've got a YCS, which is the strike cruiser, which is a 3/6. And then, of course, they've got these W and YSRs here with prime teams as well. I think the Kzinti were following a similar strategy to what the Hydrons were doing, which was just pump out a whole bunch of YFELs. But the YFELs, exploration freighters, are not doing the job effectively enough. So pairing prime teams with survey ships seems like the better strategy, proven through data. And so it looks like they're starting to do that here as well. But it's interesting that you have these strike cruisers with prime. I mean, certainly a cruiser with a prime team does a better job at exploring, similar to a YFEL as far as chances to explore. It's 50-50. But a YSR is certainly the best way to go. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops going forward. But again, the Kzinti, that is, are working, it would seem, with the Romulans. The Romulans have shared where their location of planets are. And there's got to be some level of intelligence sharing that's going on there. I'll be very interested to see how that evolves going forward. Cruiser prime team combo, Smee says. Okay, so let's take a quick look at this chat. Let me slide into this screen so we can see it. All right, so Eugene says, the problem with exclusively building YDKs over YFF slipways is that you cannot upgrade your YDKs to DD slipways. You need a DD slipway. It costs 15 EP to build directly. You're absolutely right. So, for example, with any, and it goes beyond that as well. So, for example, in the early era, W and Y, you can build like a YDK. And a YDK can build a YFF. But when you go to M, you still only build YFFs until you upgrade to a starbase. So you need the base technology to match your construction technology to be able to build the higher end ship. So you could be an M-Tech and you can still only build YFFs at those YDKs. However, if you've got a slipway, you can spend 5 EP and upgrade the technology when you have that construction technology available. So, for example, you have a bunch of YFF slipways, 3 of them, and then you just spend 5 EP per slipway, 15 total, and you can upgrade them all to M-Tech. In addition, spend the 5 EP and that cost of 10 EP slipway for a YFF can be upgraded to a DD, assuming that you don't have any DDs already. So you could take 15 EP, invest it in those 3 YFF slipways and make them all YDD slipways, and then spend another 5 EP to upgrade them to M-Tech whenever that happens. And similarly, you can upgrade the DDs to CLs and CAs and so on. Now, there's a certain maximum of slipways that you can have, and once you reach that, you reach that. But yeah, there is an advantage and a disadvantage either way, whichever way you go, in the sense that YDKs provide defensive bonuses, repair capacity, and conversion capability. Slipways provide essentially better upgradability, better expandability in building larger class ships. You can overbuild, and you can upgrade the technology, which you can't necessarily do with a YDK unless you're upgrading the whole base to a star base, by example. So there's a lot that goes into there. Bill says the Zin scientists were exploring other dimensions, what, chemically, and saw in one of those that the Klingon homeworld went down in flames. The Kzinti king decided not to do that. I'm not sure what that means. Okay. Jim says Magpie specifically mayhem. Where's your baubles? Hit those like buttons, guys. 2 done so far. Yeah. So currently we have double digits again for live streaming. A little lower on our total concurrent viewers right now, but yeah, here we go. We're up to 10 likes. Let's get to matching the views to the likes, and that'll be the best way to go. After all, we want to tickle the algorithm the right way just so that more of us can see this kind of stuff and participate in playing in this wonderful game. So we've got the Kzinti. Let's jump over to the dirty bird known as the Paravians. Hello, Kentucky Fried Chicken. The Colonel is calling, and boy, is it finger-licking good. All right, so let's take a look. We can see that the Paravians have engaged or encountered the Romulans for the first time. We can see that they have bumped into a planetary ground base. Whoa, ladies and gentlemen. Let me guess, was that an albatross? Albatross! Fired a coffee. So much stimulation, I don't know how to handle myself. Oh, yeah. All right, here we are. Minor planet, planetary ground base, YBS, as well as a combination of 1 warbird and 2 frigates supporting, so cruiser, 2 frigates supporting the defense of this planet. Now, what are the Paravians going to do? You can see that they've encountered a rather long DMZ. Very interesting to note the span of this DMZ. You know, I was talking about the pulsars and the connective tissue with the DMZs. I don't see any pulsars here. I just see DMZ. So the question is there pulsars about to be discovered or like just on the edge of space? But there's all this DMZ. Also interesting to note, you can see the DMZ that's close to the area that explores. That makes total sense. But obviously, the Paravians have been chit-chatting with the Romulans because you can see DMZ extending into the fog of war space, which would indicate that there's been some degree of intelligence sharing there. So the Paravians would seem to be playing nice, at least initially, with the Romulans. Okay. Also, another thing to note is this briar patch icon here. So again, in this module, we added some sort of geographic features, and one of them is the briar patch. So Robin, call out to our GM. Robin, can you explain to us what the briar patch iconography does? Is it just another void in the sense I can't travel through it? Or what are the consequences of the briar patch? What happens when you go into or transit into the briar patch? Tell us more. Tell us more. Okay, 7th Exploration Fleet. Let's look at these dirty birds. Paravian, 7th. Where are you? 7th Exploration Fleet. Boom. All right, here are the exploration fleets. I'm trying to find a place. We'll just put it here for now. 7th Exploration Fleet is a YSR with a YFF. Boom. You can see they're doing an excellent job exploring. 1, 2, 3 at the edge of their supply for this YBS right here. And you can see the majority of all the exploration fleets here, YSRs with prime teams and escorts. There's only 2 that don't have prime teams and 1 that doesn't have an escort. So interesting to note. Excuse me. Oh, and let me take away the ships real quick. We'll talk about EP and fleet cap in just a sec. Let's look at bases real quick. 1, 2. So I always find it hard to find them color on color. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I only see 8 bases. And yeah, there's only 8 bases. So 8 bases. Now, granted, when you have a bigger footprint, 8 bases looks like it's very spread out versus, you know, the microscopic Hydran Empire footprint. But nonetheless, we've got lots of ability to expand. Look at that nice big planet. Lots of ability to expand out with supply based on the number of planets that they've encountered. Let's take a quick look at their EP and compare it to our standards. So the Paravians, there we are, 91.6. So 91.6, they're just a little bit below the average, being in the top 90s there. But certainly better than the 78 of the Hydran Empire and 69 of the Kzinti. So the lower end of average, but nonetheless competitive. It would seem also when it comes to fleet cap that they are not doing too poorly. They have 39 total ships. Again, better than the Hydrans, but with 111 attack, 220 defense. Not the biggest, not the smallest, certainly holding their own. Jim says there's also a YDK on his homeworld as well. Robin says, drat, Jim beat me to it. Here, it's a radiation zone, and more folk than just Jim lost a ship in there. Okay, so it's a radiation zone. So what is the consequence of a radiation zone, Robin? What does that mean? If I have a ship that floats into this radiation zone, what happens? Tell me more, tell me more. Like, does he have a car? All right, terrible Grease reference. Moving along. So, interesting to note, I'm going to pop the no control zone. Okay, so Jim, you had an encounter with the Tholians. So let me show you real quick what happened with the Tholians. So this is just a capture of a very poor quality pic that was sent my way. Here we have the this was the initial battle with the Tholians. Now I don't know what hex this happened in. I'll get Jim to let me know. But for all intents and purposes, this is a battle mat. So when you're doing battles in Federation Empire, on the tabletop, you use this battle mat. And in the virtual tabletop of Vassal, we have this virtual version of the battle mat here. So you can see here on the bottom, which is the Tholian side, you have, and it's harder to see here, but don't worry, it'll clear up in a second when I show you the second map. There is a base, a bats over here, which has 12 attack, 6 fighter factors, and EW. You have a ground battalion, which has 3 attack, 3 defense, and 6 fighter factors. And then you have a destroyer and 2 patrol craft. The destroyer is a 4-6. The patrol crafts are 2-4. So there's 3 of those ships, 1 destroyer, 2 patrol craft, the ground base, and the battle station. The Paravians brought to the fight a whole bunch of other ships off into the side, but in their first battle line is the Woody Woodpecker, which is their YDN command ship. Another DN, which I can't quite make out here. I'm going to say it's Buzz Lightyear. It's not Buzz Lightyear, but maybe it is Buzz Lightyear. There's a Toy Story theme going on here. So YDN, a YCA, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 YCAs. They're all 4-6 ships. Again, talking about the 4-6 is sort of the top end standard for cruisers at this era. So 4 YCAs and 4 YFFs. Their FFs being at 2-3. So we've got this and 2 prime teams as well. So this fleet versus the Tholians. Now, generally speaking, you'd look at that and say, oh, well, the Paravians are going to cream the Tholians. Well, there's 2 things about the Tholians. One, they got fighter factors, EW advantage, and when it's all said and done, they're not nothing. They're not a small force to deal with. So when the battle was complete, this is what it looked like, a little bit clearer to see. So you can see here that there are 2 frigates that were crippled. 2 frigates crippled in the battle line, but a total of, and I can't quite see them all, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like 5 frigates crippled, 1 crippled cruiser, and the Tholians lost, or no, maybe those are ships lost. Those are ships lost. So 5 lost frigates, 1 lost cruiser, and the Tholians lost everything. They lost their bats, the PCs, the DD, and the station. So 5 ships lost and a cruiser. 5 frigates lost and a cruiser, and 2 frigates crippled. And the Paravians were victorious in their combat with the Tholians. Where did that combat occur? In 1521, he says. So in 1521, which is down here on this base, 3rd YDN Kiss, Jesse, located in 1521. Right. But where did the battle take place? 1223, he says. Okay, 1223. So 1223 on this planet right here. So this planet at the very bottom, devastated. I think I could figure that out. So this devastated planet used to be a Tholian planet, and he attacked it, he destroyed it, or destroyed the defenses, and has now conquered this planet. Now the question is, there isn't any area of control here. So we've devastated this planet. You've kicked the hornet's nest, which is the Tholians. What are they going to do in response? Who knows? But we have Eagle Fleet and third exploration fleet. So let's look at the Paravians. Where are you? There we are. So Paravian Eagle Fleet has the remnants of that battle force. So we have 2 DNs, we have a remaining 6 now CAs, a light cruiser, and 3 FFs with 2 prime teams. So not an insignificant amount of ships, but that's what they used to stomp that planet. I have a feeling that fleet is supposed to be on the devastated planet, but that's just my thought process. Third exploration fleet for the Paravians. I was just looking at them. Third exploration fleet. Third exploration fleet is a YSR with a YFF, so they're doing well to be able to explore. Now, the thing is, because the planet was devastated, it will not be able to be a supply node for them. In the previous campaign with New Worlds, one of the things we saw is that people were able to conquer planets, and those planets, especially colonies, became supply points right away. That is not the case in this game or any of the other campaigns going forward. When you conquer a planet and it is devastated for 10 turns, while it is devastated, you'll get 1 EP from it. You will not get any supply from it. It is not a supply point. So what that does, 2 things. 1, it makes the progression of supply and extending your supply a little bit more cumbersome. And also, you got to build a base on it to defend it. And, of course, extend the supply. So it just makes that process a little bit longer here. Battle happened in turn 40. So Daniel said, the devastated planet has no garrison, ? So one of the things that came up in a previous campaign is that when you conquer an enemy planet and it's devastated, there is civil unrest, right? You go and you conquer an area and there's going to be resistance to your occupation. That exists for 5 years or 10 turns. And only then, when it starts to recover, will things change. However, if you don't have a garrison, like some kind of unit, some kind of military unit to support the planet, there is a high likelihood, it's a chance roll, that the planet will revert to its previous owner. So the only time that changes is if a peace treaty is established and then the planet is ceded to the conquering faction, and then it flips. So in this case, the Paravians took the planet. The Tholians are the resistance, and if they don't reinforce it, there's a strong chance that with a die roll that it will revert back to Tholian control. However, if there was a peace treaty between the Tholians and the Paravians, and then the Tholians attacked and took it, it would be the other way around. Paravians would be the resistance, and then if the Tholians didn't occupy it, then there would be a chance that it would revert back to Paravian control. Make sense? So Robin says, we are figuring out how to get the right icon to give 1 EP after cycling through several options. I forgot to move fleets back before saving and ending. So GM finger fumble there. That's all that was. Okay, so that's what that looks like on the Paravian side. Lots of narrative magic going on in the background with some double entendres and various other things. If you, as I slide back to our chat here, if you are excited and delighted and want to see all the role-playing back end that goes into this campaign and the other campaigns, and you can join us on our Discord channel by hitting the coffee and Discord tier on either Patreon or Coffee, and you'll get a prompt, a link, a way to be able to join our Discord channel and be recognized as a Coffee or Patreon supporter. And you can head over there and join us on our Discord channel and participate in the witty banter, the back and forth, and everything that's going on with regards to that that role play, that game, and of course the socialization that happens on our channel. Speaking of which, quick little plug for bevies and banter. So if you are already a member of our Discord channel and or you want to see a live stream where we're talking about all things this game and Star Trek in general, and we're just slinging it back and forth between sips of various bevies, inebriating and not, then please let me know in the comments below what time, what place and time works best for you. Would you prefer it just to be on Discord, or would you like it on a live stream? We can do one or two or both or all. It's all up to you. You let me know what works best. After all, we're a community of players. We're here to have fun and, of course, enjoy each other's company and have a good time playing this game. With that said, let's slide over to, I believe, our last faction, which is the Romulans. Let's slide into the Romulans right now. Hello, Romulans. So one thing about the Romulan map, because of the color conflict between the Tholians and the Romulans, you will note that the blue is actually the Tholians on this map. And the reason why that is, of course, is because the Romulans are red and black, and that's going to be an issue. I wonder what's going to happen when we go to the big map and the Tholians have to be red again. What's that going to look like when it's all said and done? I'd be very curious to know. Righty. So here we have, again, look, we've got the pulsar. I don't see any disputed zones or DMZs. So like, what's going on here? I'm so curious to know what that's all about. Of course, you can see the DMZ over in this corner where this Romulan is. And this Romulan is on a colony, interesting to note, right next to some Tholian minor planets and other resources. Let's take a look at where the Romulans are when it comes to total EP. Romulan, where are you, my friend? There you are. Romulan is at 97 EP, so right around that top 90 average. And fleet cap. Fleet cap is floating at 82. 82 total ships. I think that's the biggest. 82 total ships. Or no, the Lyrans had 110, wasn't it? Oh my God. Anyways, 82 total ships, 216 attack, 358 defense factors. If you recall, in New Worlds, the previous campaign, there were fully mature player factions that had fleets that big. At the mature end of the game, like 100 plus turns. Here we are in the early, quote unquote, early stages of the game, and you have factions with this size fleet. That is crazy. Okay. That is just nuts. Okay, and oh, yeah, just so many things about that. Okay, so we've got the Romulans kicking butt and taking names. Wow. They are interacting with the Romulans, and I'm going to assume that there's some kind of friendly interaction because you can see here this Romulan planet up in the corner. The only way they would know about that is if there was some kind of positive interaction between the Romulans and the Romulans to be able to like have that intelligence that we talked about before. So from a role-playing perspective, we can assume, we can guess, maybe, sort of, kind of, that there's some interaction going on between them. Obviously, the Romulans have encountered the Tholians because they've encountered these planets and resources. But I wonder, have the Romulans, ? Actually fought or engaged the Tholians in any way? Or are they just kind of dancing around them? Be curious to know. We've got the, okay, Romulan, where are you? Romulan fleet, Rykon. Okay, so the Rykon fleet, interesting to note. So there's this wormhole, and the Romulans have built a base on the wormhole. Excellent move. Interesting to note, they've also got 3 destroyers, 2 cruisers, and a command cruiser sitting on this wormhole with the base. Now, don't get me wrong, you don't want some random stranger popping through the wormhole. However, interesting to note that there's no R&D team or survey ship exploring it. So what this looks like to me is I'm plugging the hole. I'm sticking a cork in it and save it for later. But you're making sure that no uninvited guests come through the back door, which is very interesting, very good to note. I like it very much. Very interesting. Also, look at the pattern of, can I zoom out here one more? Look at the pattern of exploration on this map. See how it's sort of like going off in these little tendrils, like up here, 1, 2, 3, this little bulb of exploration. He's going to round that out, obviously, because you can only go 3 supply, but it's happening in more than one area, so it's interesting to note here too. 1, 2, 3, yep, and 1, 2, 3. So they're going to round that out, round this out. Yeah, it's so interesting to watch the sort of organic exploration of how these areas of space are getting explored. So neat. But again, like the Remans have this large navy, 80 plus ships with over 200 attack factor. The question is, what are they going to do with it? How are they going to interact with, with the Romulans and the Tholians? It would seem, based on what I'm looking at right here, we've got a diplomatic team and an R&D team heading towards, it would seem, this Romulan colony. So I'm going to assume that they're going to head over there and do some increasing of diplomatic relations and maybe some exchange of technology or research. We'll see. Normally R&D teams go to the homeworld to be able to do that, but I'll be curious to see how that works. Very interesting to know. And of course, again, I'm really curious about this bad boy right here. This pulsar. Where is the DMZ around that pulsar? And the fact that there isn't one is like driving me insane, because there has got to be one. Like maybe it's straight up north and just out to the west. I don't know. Like obviously maybe it just hasn't been explored yet, but I'm very curious to see how those pulsars act as landmarks when it comes to the greater map. Very, very curious. All right. Triton Fleet looks like it's going to play with the Tholian tyranny. Where's Triton Fleet? Triton Fleet? Oh, yeah. Well, I don't see any. See, this is the thing. I don't see any Tholian ships there, unless it's a finger fumble in the sense of like they're just not populated. But why are there no Tholian ships here? There should be Tholian ships that would like stomp him. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. It'll be very interesting to see that when and how that goes down. Interesting. All right, let's slide back to the chat. All right, so did I miss the ISC, Mayhem343 says? Well, out of all the players that submitted their turns, I did not get an ISC map. Now, I think that's because the ISC player... Yeah, I think that's because the ISC player didn't get their turn in time for the broadcast or when the maps were sent to me. So there is one player missing in this collection. So, that's what's going on there. So nothing nefarious. ISC had an issue getting their turns in, Robin says. Yeah. Who's blue and white, Bill says. Well, Smitty, that is because of the color contrast between the Tholians and the Remans and the confusion on the Reman map, and on the Reman map only, the Tholians are represented in the blue colors like the Orions. That's what that is. So I have an idea for the big map when the big map pops up. Would it be useful and or valuable to have the Tholians be that color blue? I don't know. Because when you go to the big map, that'll still be an issue. How are you going to resolve it? So I think without either, the Riemann player just has to adapt and overcome, or we make all the Tholian planets blue and white. The only challenge with that will be managing economy, if that's something to sort out from the GM perspective, because it'll be, I'm assuming Orions will be the the TAD that you're using. I'm sure there's a way to work around that, but just something to think about when it comes to that that dynamic there with managing that. So let me know what you think. So we've had the Gambit. We've talked about the Tholians, who they are. They are the oppressors, the former ancient sort of empire that rule us all, and due to some galactic calamity with the Celtorians and an internal collapse, they have fragmented, splintered, you might say, and now all our player factions are living, thriving in the void of their loss of control. But they are very obviously still there and looking to exert some control over us. What kind of threat do they represent? Well, it would seem that the Paravians were able to give them a thumping, and they look like they're not the only faction that's engaging them in a hostile way. So how potent are they? Yes, they've got the most advanced ships in the game, but if you've only got 5 of them and you're facing a fleet of 20 Y ships, the Y ships will come out on top, as demonstrated by the Paravians. So the question is, how big a threat are they? And will the Tholians be able to combine their forces and beat the snot out of these player factions that are getting all uppity? Is it just a matter of one faction at a time, or can they, if all the player factions were somehow to attack the Tholians concurrently, would that overwhelm Tholian resources? I don't know. It'd be interesting to know. So how do we deal with them? Well, very obviously, we've got a couple factions that are picking fights, other factions who haven't just done that yet. Very obviously, for example, we just saw the Romulans. They haven't actually taken any of those resources yet. So be curious to see how that progresses going forward. What about the Romulans? We've seen that the Romulans are very obviously, many of the player factions are engaging them in a pleasant, peaceful, collaborative way. Is that beneficial for... is it beneficial for the player factions to be able to do that? Or has anyone tried just beating the snot out of the Romulans and taking them out? The Romulans are technologically peers to the player factions at this point. The only thing they have that the players don't have is intel. So how valuable is that intel, and how do you want to gather it? Do you want to dominate the Romulans and get it that way, or collaborate and get it and get it in that? And my goodness, words are challenging. Do you want to dominate them and get the intelligence through torture and other means, or are you going to be diplomatic and sweet talk them with wine and honey? We'll see. And lastly, the intelligence. Where are all the player factions when it comes to this intelligence scale? You as a player, do you know where you are? Are you 1, 2, 3, 4, or on the cusp of getting to 5? Is the GM hiding that behind the screen? Is it a roll in the dark? Do you know how far you have to go until you get to the big map? The big map reveal will be an epic moment. You'll know where you are relative to other players. You'll know where your neighbors are. You'll get that level of intelligence. And if you're the first to do it, how much... Oh! Woo! I nearly fell off my chair. I was so blown away by that coffee. What's going to happen? So that was Robin J. fired a coffee. Quick sip. So much coffee this time around. Love it. Love it. Thank you very much for all the effervescent support. 275% of our goal today. Wow. Wow. Phenomenal. All right. So where do you see that going when it comes to intelligence? As the player as the viewer watching this show, what do you want to see? How do you want to see these players progress? As the player, do you know where you are? Do we want maybe on the table that the GM Robin provides us? Do we want to see a column for intelligence level? Ooh, wouldn't that be exciting? You could see where the other players are relative to you when it comes to their how close they are to getting on the big map. Are they intelligence level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Because after all, if the intelligence level is dependent on interaction with the Romulans, by example, and everyone's interacting with the Romulans know about everybody else. So therefore, they could potentially share that information with the other factions. For example, let's say the Remans are playing nice with the Romulans. The Hydrants decide to piss off the Romulans and attack them. The Hydrants get intelligence level 2, let's say, because of their attack on a Romulan planet. But the Romulans share information with the Remans and let them know the Hydrons have gained this level of top secret security clearance in our network. They're at intelligence level 2. But don't worry, you're at level 3. This is the information we've given you. And then the Hydrons steal something else, and they find out that, they're actually at now level 3, or whatever the case is. Is that freedom of information, that publication, that transparency, does that build suspense? Does that create anticipation? I feel like it would. You let me know. What do you think? Ooh, baby. I like that idea. Okay. So we've done the Tholians, we've done the Romulans, we talked about intelligence, we did the player recap. We've had a copious amount of coffee today. Hoorah! All right. And, of course, the surprise visit by my daughter in the middle of the live stream. Warms my heart. Okay, so what do you think? How do you want to see this progress? If you're a player in this campaign, how do you want to interact with Romulans, Tholians, and your potential neighbors when you get to the big map? How do you want to see that go forward? All things that we will be discussing on our Discord channel following this live stream. If you're not already a part of our Discord channel, hit that coffee and Discord tier at coffee using that QR code or the link down below, and you can head over and join us on our Discord channel, participate in the role play, participate in the banter, get into the story that is this game, not to mention New Worlds and Imperial Stars, which are coming as far as like updates on those games are coming. I'm looking to do a second live stream this week talking about New Worlds. There was just so much stuff to talk about in Splintered Will this time that, we didn't want this to be longer than 2 hours. We're almost at 2 hours now. So, yes, New Horizons, New Horizons will be later this week. All right. And a little trash talk. There you go. All right, so I will see you all in the Discord channel here shortly. Until then, I will see you later this week or maybe next week. Make sure you've got notifications on so you know when that next live stream is coming up. And let me know about that bevies and banter when you want that to happen, and we can get that going. All right, with that said, ciao for now, and I will see you next time. Bye.